Hello, and welcome to Critically Disdained. Today, we're going to review Weezer's new release, Spring, from their bigger project, SZNZ. SZNZ is spelled SZNZ, or for you Americans out there, that's SZNZ. This is the first of a four-part release that Weezer's doing. Seasons will be released on the first day of the seasons and will be named after the season of release. So all four releases will be spring, summer, fall, and winter. So let's just jump right into spring because that's what was released today. Happy first day of spring, by the way. Oh, that rhymed. That's excellent. So spring, it's a short record. It only takes about 20 minutes from start to finish. It also felt as if Rivers Cuomo had a idea and was like, hey, I just had an idea. Let's record this next week. And then they came out with the spring record. It feels more like a sample record or demo tape than it does an actual full album. Now, it's not a bad album. I don't want to give that impression. But despite having the classic Weezer distortion sound on their guitars, keeping you engaged with the highs and lows, and the production keeps you from being bored, it felt like a half-cocked experimental project. My initial thoughts in the first 40 seconds was that maybe they should go back to the shack. But being a Weezer fan, I wanted to give it a chance, and I listened to it through it 2 times before I got on board. But I did get there and I enjoyed it. One thing they did really well with this is the sonic feel of the album. It definitely feels like spring. It suits the season very well. But I did enjoy it. It took a few listens to get there. And if you are a Weezer fan, I think eventually you will too. So down to the tracks. So opening night, the opening song. If I wasn't a Weezer fan, and wanted to know what was coming, I would have skipped it. The opening wasn't gripping at all, but because I like Weezer, I wanted to see what it was going to bring. The opening felt like Shakespeare in the Park. Then the distortion came in and was kind of back and forth between these two sounds. It does fit the season of the record for sure. It sounded like a spring song. Angels on Vacation, the second track, a little bit more of a classic Weezer sound, mixed with, there were some slower spots that I felt was a little bit kind of boring. But just when you think you're going to fall asleep, the guitars bring you back in. The mindset of this song, I think, is a double meaning for the intent of the record. It's about two angels going on vacation, but it could also be taken as the anthem for Weezer right now, trying something different with this album, because this album does not sound like any other album that Weezer has put out. A Little Bit of Love, the third song. This was the only single from the album, which makes sense because it was short. It's only, I think it was eight tracks total. But it's appropriate because this single, the entire sound of the album was rolled into this one song. So if you want to know what the album sounds like without taking the 20 minutes to listen, or you need to listen later, listen to this song, because this is the entire album in a nutshell. It opens with ukulele and it has a very kind of groovy type sound to it. It's a good road trip song, honestly. This would be one that you would listen to while driving in the car on a long road trip. If it had a music video, I'm picturing snow melting away, speed shots of flowers blooming, and a filter that kind of feels you like you're in the land of filter that makes you feel like you're in the land of Oz or a 1970s movie. It is a relaxing, but it is a fun song. Garden of Eden. So the beginning of Garden of Eden, the extra sounds and piano at the opening seem very unnecessary. I don't really think they add to the song in any way. But at the same time, I get it. It helps create the feel of the album. This song gave a vibe like it needs to be in a film from the 60s or a TV show about a band at that time. That was kind of the feeling I got from this song in particular. Sounds of Drums. It's an interesting song. I'm not really sure what else I could say about that song. But it goes from there to All This Love. Now, All This Love sounds like the second part to Sound of Drums. So they're two separate songs, but what it sounds like Weezer had one long song and it was too long, and they're just like, you know what? We need to cut this in half. And they cut it in half, and then they had Sound of Drums and All This Love, because they sound like they are one continuous song. It does have what I would describe as galloping guitars. If you listen to it, you might know what I mean. You feel like you're riding the sound waves. So it was pretty cool, but it was a little bit better than Sound of Drums. But like I said, it did sound like a continuation of that song. The final song on the record is Wild at Heart. And it honestly sounds like the rest of the album. It's not a bad song, it just sounds like all the other ones. So there's nothing really different about it, although the ending was very cool and gave it a very climactic feel to finish it off. So that was really cool. So, favorite song. My favorite song was A Little Bit of Love. I felt that it was the most well done, and it seemed like it was the most thought out, which is probably why it was the single on there. So that was my favorite song, A Little Bit of Love. Least favorite song. This was hard because there wasn't really any songs on here that I was like, oh yeah, I really don't like that song. Everything was just different. But if I had to pick, I would choose Wild at Heart. And not because it was necessarily my least favorite, but it did feel the least like Weezer. It had more of a vibe like it was a Rivers side project. And that one finishes off the album. And like I said before, that one is very climactic at the end, which is really neat. Overall, it's an enjoyable record. It definitely feels like spring when listening to it, but it also feels like it was half thrown together. As far as a rock score, I really can't rate this one on a rock level. You could place it though in a different timeline. It feels like it belongs more in the 60s or the 70s than it does now. So I'm not really sure what they were going for with this album, but it definitely doesn't sound like anything else that Weezer has put out. The quality of sound, I would give it a 6. It felt rushed and not fully thought out. It wasn't bad, but it didn't feel like it was done in a way that was complete. Like I said earlier, I felt like the idea sounded like it was recorded a week after having the idea. The enjoyableness score, I would give it a 7.5 because the more you listen to it, the better it does get. And since it's only 20 minutes long, you can actually easily listen to it many times in a short period. So go check it out. It is worth a listen. I did enjoy it, but like I said, it does take a few listens through before getting on board. Hit me in the comments. Let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts and opinions. If you had a different feeling from it, let me know. As usual, if you like this review, don't forget to subscribe and follow me on the socials. I can be found on most platforms under the handle Half Eaten Salad. I also post the audio of this and other videos I make on the streaming services, such as Spotify or Apple Music. If you want to keep up to date on upcoming album releases, join me on Discord. I post there as soon as I hear about new albums being now announced. And lastly, you can follow me on Spotify, where I'm constantly creating and updating music playlists. I will put the links in the descriptions below for all those things. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time here on Critically Disdained.